Views expressed on the following show are not necessarily those of WPSL, but we're the ones that have encouraged you all along to like and share them on social media and with all your friends and neighbors, because CareBag at this time presents Careology, the science of caring, hosted this week by the one and only Miles McGrath.
There we go.
There
Perfect.
A lot of microphones today.
Welcome to Monday. We have an exciting show in store for the listeners and the viewers on, I guess it would be YouTube, right? And we're happy to be here. But as we do with every show, we like to start out with a little bit of background of what Careology is and why it exists. And for those that don't know, Careology is a subset of CareBag. And CareBag is a nonprofit organization that is along the Treasure Coast, all the way from Vero down to Palm Beach. We provide services for our homeless population. We like to call them our neighbors without walls. And we have three mobile shower units that we bring to different locations that serve that population. So they could be a church in the heart of a community that has a soup kitchen. It could be a shelter that has that maybe their shower unit's not working right now, or it could be at a park somewhere. We bring these units and it allows people to have dignity. Maybe they haven't had a shower in a few weeks. They're living out of their car. That's one thing we do. The other thing we do is we have a mobile pantry van that we bring around to locations where food is being distributed. And we distribute other types of items that are needed items like soap, shampoo, socks, underwear, diapers, Depends, things that are really essential to hygiene. And that is kind of the backbone of our operation that was founded by Roseanne Brown. We'd like to call her Roxy. And it came out of a yearning from her heart to help that population. So if you feel the call, we'd love to have you consider being a volunteer at CareBag. You can visit our website, carebagfl.org. And there are other ways you can do too. We have a circle that we invite people in who want to donate or want to volunteer. We have a high tea coming up at the end of March on the 30th. We have another fundraiser, Get Celebrity Chef, on May 7th. And then in August on the 11th, we have a back to school event where we provide haircuts for the kids, and we get other donors to give backpacks filled with school stuff. And that's always a successful event. But if you are at all interested, we'd love to talk to you about being a volunteer. And in keeping with that theme of volunteering and helping the community, I invited some special guests today from an amazing organization that helps the Treasure Coast as well, and that's New Horizons. I don't know if folks don't know what New Horizons is, and that's okay. That's why we're having the show today. But welcome to the show. Please introduce yourselves.
Thank you for having us. I'm Margaret Winter. I'm the program manager for Wraparound Services. And here we have...
I'm Casey Wood. I'm the director of prevention.
Casey and Margaret, thank you so much. For those that don't know, there's so many things that New Horizons does. How do you talk about that with people when they're like, well, and someone says, well, what does New Horizons do? How do you even start? Because they do so many amazing things for the community. How do you describe what they do?
We were just talking about that before we came in here. So to put it in a nutshell, we generally say we're the most comprehensive mental health and substance use provider on the Treasure Coast and in Okeechobee.
All the way to Okeechobee as well.
All the way to Okeechobee as well. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for children and adults, we start all the way from prevention in children, prevention of substance use disorder, so providing school-based services, all the way to detox and independent recovery in adults, and then a full spectrum of mental health services in children and adults as well.
And how long have you been at New Horizons?
We started almost at the same time, actually. We're both coming up on 12 years.
12 years?
Yes.
They started when they were 5. Wow, that is, and how did, what drew you to do that type of work? Because you know, the populations you're talking about there are people that have substance abuse issues, people that have mental challenges they're dealing with, sometimes are not the easiest populations at first. Obviously, if they get the help, you see the results, but at first that's a challenge. Like, what drew you to that type of work?
For me, always wanting to help people, and at New Horizons, our mission is to provide accessible behavioral health services for people within our community to help improve their lives and their well-being. And so that motivates me to wanting to be there, to want to show up for people each day, meeting them where they're at, helping them to find that strength within them to continue, and getting the services that they need.
Wow. I feel that. For you, the same for you?
Yeah, for me, I had individuals that were close to me when I was growing up with mental health diagnoses. And so when I went to college, psychology really drew me in. I was really interested in the classes that I was taking. And so just as I continued in my courses, it kind of happened naturally. And New Horizons mission just really spoke to me as well, to be able to help individuals that might not be able to access the services on their own, and to be able to provide support to people that are possibly going through some of the worst crises that they've ever gone through, and to be that beacon of hope for them, or to help them find that beacon of hope is it's really a privilege.
I love the name New Horizons. I think it does speak to that, because a lot of people probably feel that there is no horizon for them when they're in a situation like that. So the name itself kind of speaks to the vision you want to help your clients get to, that they have a new horizon, they can start fresh, they can start over. But let's backtrack a little bit and just go through each section of what you guys do there. And you kind of touched on something that I think is really crucial. People feel like they, need a lot of financial resources to afford something. What if they don't have the financial resources? How do they get the treatment they need at New Horizons?
So the good thing about New Horizons is we provide services regardless of your ability to pay. So you're never turned away from services there. So you're always welcome.
I think that's always, that's what I want to make that point.
Yes.
If you don't have the ability to pay, New Horizons is going to be there to help you. So I just want to make sure everybody's got that message.
No one is turned away.
When we say accessible, we mean accessible.
And so that's a beautiful thing for the community. I think it's a best kept secret here in Fort Pierce. Now there's the big location in Fort Pierce. Where's the other? I think there's a couple other locations.
So we have offices in all 4 counties. So there's an office in Okeechobee, there's one in Stewart. We have one in Fort Pierce. I know Fort Pierce is like, we're on that border right there, our Midway campus.
Yes.
And then we do have one that's located in Fort Pierce.
Got it. Got it. So let's backtrack a little bit. What are specifically, I know you help children. Let's start with the youngest, and then we'll move up to the more general things that you do. So what services do you provide for children?
So for children, we have mental health and substance use programs co-occurring. We have our outpatient and inpatient. So inpatient, we have our crisis stabilization unit. It's a 20-bed unit for ages 6 through 17.
Okay.
You can go voluntarily or through a Baker Act, and we provide that crisis stabilization services for them.
Crisis stabilization. So they're having some type of profound situation that can't be handled in the home, or maybe there could be one of the folks we serve, they could be homeless. What, from the start to getting the care they need, what typically happens? Like, are they making a phone call, or somebody referring them, or what is the typical way of that population from the 6 years old to
6 through
young
17.
adult, right?
Yes.
How are they finding their way to New Horizons?
It really depends on where the situation is happening. If they're at school, a lot of times the schools will go through whatever process they have as a district. Sometimes that includes reaching out to our mobile crisis team. and giving them a call and having them come out to assess the situation. The goal with our mobile response team is always to de-escalate the situation rather than Baker acting.
Right.
But if a Baker Act is needed, then they will help facilitate that. If this is happening at home, then a family can call 211 and 211 will direct them to our mobile response team. Or, sometimes there are other providers that refer to us.
And sometimes it could be that SR at school that may do that Baker Act and bring that client in.
Interesting. What is the average amount of time? I know we'll just focus on the mental piece from, the young adult. What would you say is the average time somebody is there where you're able to kind of take them from a non-desirable situation for everybody to, I feel better, I'm ready to kind of see my new horizon again? What would you say is the average?
So like we said, it's crisis stabilization, so it's more short term, so it's like 3 to 5. However, we've had cases where it's longer.
3 to 5 days?
Yes, 3 to 5 days. We've had cases where it's longer, being on that medical need to continue services.
Right, but on average, that's.
But on average, yes.
De-escalation, they more stabilized.
More stabilized,
And
they get a
putting the
treatment
resources
plan,
in
the
place.
resources in place. Yeah, they set up with outpatient services. So once they leave there, they're continuing that services when they're in the community.
And now, keeping under the mental health umbrella, you offer those same services for adults as well?
Yes.
Okay. What, about the same amount of time someone's spending there?
For the crisis, yes.
Okay, for that. And they could, well, how will they find themselves? Will they sometimes make the phone call? Will they get referred? What about the same amount of different ways they're going to find new horizons?
Yes. So it can be voluntary, Baker Act, or sometimes a Marchman Act.
Yes.
So if somebody's in a crisis right now, they don't have the ability to pay and they need some mental health consultation, they could call
Yes.
New Horizons and they could at least direct them, or they could call 211.
Yes.
Yeah. And
So-
our main line is 772-468-5600, and we can direct you to whatever services you need.
So let's bears repeating. What is it? What is the number?
So it's 772-468-5600.
So let's say you have a family member that you feel needs help. What do you recommend that family member do? To call and see if they need help, or what? And the person doesn't want to get help. Like what do you do if you're a family member that is seeing somebody that really is harming themselves or doing something that is dangerous? What do they do in that situation?
So if it's something that's dangerous, I would call 211 and talk to the mobile response team and see what resources they would recommend or what support they would recommend. If it's someone that is at risk of harm or dangerous to themselves or to others, then likely a bigger act would be put into place.
Got it.
And they would go to one of our crisis stabilization units for treatment. If it's someone that's not, in immediate harm, then, a child can be taken to services, whether they really, want to be involved in services or not. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, someone be involved in services until they're ready to access treatment, because, we can't force anyone to make the changes that are needed until they actually want to make those changes.
You're bringing up the kind of, I feel like the other half of what you do is the addiction treatment piece. What ages do you serve for that population?
So we actually start with prevention.
Okay.
And that is school-based services in all 4 counties, and it's funded by Southeast Florida Behavioral Health Network, Children's Services Council of St. Lucie County, and Okeechobee County as well. And we're fully grant funded. The services never cost anyone, just like the rest of the services that New Horizons provides. And we are providing evidence-based prevention services in the schools in our counties. And so that's for the general population. Every service that we provide is evidence-based, developmentally appropriate. It can start as early as kindergarten. And when we say substance use prevention, we're not going into a kindergarten classroom and teaching them about the risks of using alcohol. It's about taking care of ourselves and, making sure that we're making healthy choices and providing them with basic skills that every single human being needs. And so that's really where it starts, is trying to prevent adult treatment needs. We want to avoid those substance use disorders and traumas that can come, as a result of that. So yeah, that's where it starts.
So the education, are all the public schools aware of the programs that you offer?
Yes, in St. Lucie County, we're actually contracted with the school district to provide what's called the Too Good for Drugs program to all of the fifth grade classrooms. And so we go throughout the school year on a rotation. That's a 10-week curriculum. So if someone has a fifth grader or someone that has gone through fifth grade in St. Lucie County's public schools, they've gone through that curriculum. And then outside of that, we're able to provide other curricula at other grade levels. But our prevention specialists are in the schools regularly. The principals and guidance counselors work closely with them, and the school districts are very supportive. So,
is that both for private and public schools?
So it's not required for the private schools, but it is available to them.
So private schools could reach out to you and
Yes.
say, we'd like you to come in and do this program.
Yes,
with
and
us."
we've worked with a few in previous school years. So it
Okay.
just depends on scheduling availability and all of that, because with the contract, it's actually a Florida mandate that all fifth graders receive some type of substance use prevention curriculum at some point during their school year. So we have to provide that service at some point that year. But if anybody else that we can squeeze in, we're more than happy to.
So the takeaway here is fifth grade, you've got it covered in the public schools.
Yes.
If private schools want, they can reach out to you, and you have curriculum
Yes.
for the younger audience,
Yes.
all the way up to high school.
Yes.
Interesting, very interesting and very important. From the adults that, we talked about helping somebody that doesn't want help, right? We have that. But then obviously the easier point is helping somebody that realizes they need help.
Mhm.
So somebody may be listening to this call, they just realize they don't want to, keep going to the liquor store every day and, dealing and having that on their back every day, and they need help. They need detox. They're afraid to do it. They've heard stories. What do they do?
So, sometimes people walk right up to our emergency screening door and, ring the doorbell and ask for a screening and ask for admission to the detox unit. Again, also the mobile response team is available if needed. There's a lot of ways to access services. Now, if it's not as important as, or not as emergent, I should say, it's all important, not as emergent as a detox situation or a crisis situation, we have an electronic referral form that is available online. And so anyone could fill that out and would be, contacted for services to be set up.
So what is your website where they could find that form?
Oh, it's a lot of letters. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. It is www.nh, so New Horizons, nhtcinc.org.
We are going to have that up on the YouTube channel, and Cliff is taking note of that. And we'll announce it again before the show ends. When we talk about substance abuse, there's so many things we've heard of recently, and the tragedy, I think one of the main tragedies in our country right now is so many overdoses that are happening. Do you deal with all different types of substances at New Horizons for helping them with the abuse, or do you specialize in only a few?
Yeah, we deal with all types of substances. We also have the MAT clinic, which I like to mention. That's our medication assisted treatment. And this came about in 2017 through that opioid epidemic crisis that's been going on. And with these services, we offer counseling, medical assistance for clients that are in need. So we provide the Vivitrol, the Suboxone, Subutex for families. And so we also have a Narcan clinic where you can come in and we provide Narcan at no cost.
Wow.
Narcan is really something that, the goal would be for every single person to be trained in administering Narcan, because unfortunately, with such an opioid crisis on our hands, it's better to just have access to it and to know how to use it. It's a very simple tool to use, but it's at this point, it's as important as knowing basic CPR.
That is incredible to think about, that at least we're at a place where we're open to the idea
Yes.
of being prepared to help somebody, because the stigma that typically attached to somebody who's an addict is like, they deserve to die. That's not the case. They got a situation that put them in that case. They have to take responsibility, but at the same time, how are they going to get better if they're not with us anymore, right? That's somebody's daughter, that's somebody's son, it could be somebody's father. It gives them another chance at life. So how do they get training if they want to learn how to use the Narcan and have that ability? What do they do?
So they can come to our MAT clinic there, and the program manager, that she's really nice, Jen. She will provide those training and how to use it.
Now, how long does it take to learn how to administer Narcan?
It's very simple
very
to
simple.
use.
Okay.
So think about like having a nasal spray.
Okay.
So it's pretty much spraying it in your nose. It's like using a nasal spray. Yes.
So it's almost like Epsom salts or
Yeah.
something, so like ammonia or something like that.
Yes.
Because I did see at Publix they have the Narcan
Yes.
now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So-
most pharmacies are carrying it now. It's very accessible.
Okay. Which is a good thing, but the reason is it's so accessible is a bad thing, right?
Yes. It definitely is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, I had the privilege to take a tour of your facility, and I was really amazed at how organized everything is, how the staff, how friendly, how nice the staff is. But I think the jewels in my tour was you have somebody that does like art healing. That she does for the kids, and I think for the whole population there, she does healing through art. Tell me a little bit about that, because you wouldn't typically. It's one of my creativities, one of my things, and for my journey has been healing for me. So I was really happy to see that. But tell us about that little kind of jewel in the middle of the whole program that you have there.
So at New Horizons, when we have clients that come to our inpatient unit, they're not just there. We provide treatment for them holistically, not just medication. So having those art groups and healings are part of it. Just having people know how to do these different methods of coping once they leave, and this is something that will stay with them.
Yeah, it's so important to have an outlet to support recovery, whether it's recovery from a substance use disorder or a mental health crisis. So, the art therapy doesn't just help with healing in the midst of that. It helps them to find a tool that can support them when they're out on their own again.
Mhm.
I was really happy to see that, and to see the line of people going in to take that course, and to meet the teacher who was just radiating positivity, and
Yes.
see all the different works of art on the
Yes.
wall, not just in her room, but throughout the facility.
Yes.
Now, have you had former folks that have been through the treatment that have come back and volunteered at New Horizons?
Not that I can speak of to give like example of their story.
Right.
But I know like within our program, we can talk specifically how our program have helped folks that we've worked with.
Mhm.
That was going to be kind of the second segment of the show, but if you want to start that, tell us some success stories that people have come through, and what where they were and how I know we probably can't specifically tell names, but if we could start the story, do you have a couple examples you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I work with the children's program, outpatient case management services, and just in the line of work that we do in providing those wraparound of services around families to make sure they get the treatment and the need. And when we pull out the services, that's what we teach family. We're there to empower them. So when we leave, you can sustain yourself, and and they're not coming back to services and having that cycle going on for them. And one of the stories I have, is a 13-year-old youth that we started working with. Um, and he was just having a lot of problems in school, aggression. He even caught a charge, but the juvenile justice department system is also involved with that. And family's just not sure. He's vaping, smoking marijuana, till he got kicked out of school, and so he was now in that alternative school setting. And so we went in, and part of the family, we went to the school. We make sure there are programs in school, and plans in place for him whenever he needs help that he can turn to. We realized that he likes music. So through a grant that we have through our agency, we got him set up through music lessons. And so he's been taking those music lessons. He loves it. He's playing at his church now. He's playing in the band at school. And that helps him to cope with that anger that he's dealing with. We also got him in wrestling. So that's another outlet for him to use to get that anger out that he's currently dealing with. And through the help of these and him, putting in place with those coping skills that he have, working with a therapist also, in dealing with those emotions, he's now doing better. He's back in regular school out of that alternative setting. Um, and that's just beautiful. The family's empowered and they're doing what they need to do to keep him where he's at.
That is awesome. I'm sure that's just one of many, many stories. And we're going to hear some more when we come back from our break. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Careology, and we'll be back in a couple minutes after a word from our sponsors. Thank you.
Why call Two Men in a Truck of the Treasure Coast? You want to move your business without moving a single meeting? You want it handled with no fuss. Lots of stuff, no time to move it? You need the pros that care. That's why you call Two Men in a Truck of the Treasure Coast. Family owned and operated franchise. Call 772-236-0827. 772-236-0827. Movers who care. Visit twomeninatrucktreasurecoast.com. Create custom business signage that customers can't miss or resist. Let Design a Sign in Port St. Lucie help you get the job done right. Over 80 years combined experience. Get it right the first time. Call 772-337-4027 and tell them Roxy said to call. Remember, call 772-337-4020. Design a Sign in Port St. Lucie. Hi, this is Roxy from Careology, and I just want to talk about volunteering. Volunteers don't necessarily have the time, but they have the heart. It takes courage and dedication to offer your time and skills to help out a cause that is a noble act that deserves recognition. Volunteering is a great way to make a difference in our community, and CareBag needs your help. We are looking for dedicated volunteers, so please get a pen, get a paper, and take down this number. It's 772-222-7399. Call us and let us know you're interested. We are looking for volunteers for the evening hours between 5 and 8 p.m. to go to our soup kitchens with our new mobile hygiene pantry. I look forward to hearing from every one of you. And remember, volunteers don't necessarily have the time, but they have the heart. Thank you.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
We now return to the science of caring. Careology. Once again, here's your host, Miles McGrath.
Thank you, Cliff. I'm here with Maggie and Casey with New Horizons. And if you're just tuning in, New Horizons does so many good things for the community along the Treasure Coast, even out to Okeechobee, down to Stewart, here in Fort Pierce, and even up past Fort Pierce and to Indian River County. And we were just learning about a story of a young individual who was suffering from some addiction issues, and he came his family and worked together. They came to New Horizons and turned things around. And I love hearing these stories because I'm sure there's somebody out there that may know of somebody like that, and they're just wondering where they can go to get the help. So I would love to hear if you've got more of those success stories. Casey or Maggie, would you like to share another one? Because these just make my day when I hear these positive things, because we all hear too much negativity. We want to hear positive, happy endings here. So what do you got for me?
Well, so one that I have is actually not an individual, but an entire school.
Wow.
So in Okeechobee County, we do not provide only the 5th grade. Not that we do that in any county, but we have 3 elementary schools that we provide Too Good for Violence and Botvan Life Skills Training, which are also evidence-based curricula, to grades K through 5 every single school year. And my prevention specialist that is out there on her 4th school year, she said that the related arts teachers were coming to her and saying that it was the first year that their 5th graders had started, and they could see a dramatic improvement in their behaviors and their social skills. And they said, we know it's because of what they're learning in the curriculum that you're teaching. And so it was really cool to hear that, not just are we seeing an impact, but the teachers are seeing a long-term impact in the behaviors of the students. So
that is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Wow. Think about the trickle down effect of that has throughout their whole life. If somebody can learn those coping skills, because it's not always the best day that we're all having, but if we can learn how to cope with our anger and learn techniques to slow it down a little bit, that affects everybody throughout the whole life. And I think, why do we lean on outside influences to make us feel better? Because it's a coping mechanism. We're having some type of stress, or we just want to shut down the world around us. And you're teaching that.
Yeah. And, like I said earlier, I think a lot of people hear substance use prevention and they think of, just say no, or of, just teaching the consequences of using substances. But prevention is really general social skills. We could provide the same work without ever talking to a child about a substance. And that's what's really cool, is when they have those skills that they need, then later on in life, when they are approached by someone suggesting that they use a substance, they are so much more likely to choose not to use the substance, because they know it doesn't align with the direction of their life. And they've had years of learning decision-making skills and regulating their emotions and things like that. And so, the foundation is there to help support them.
In terms of tips for the general population here listening to this, do you have any tips of recognizing, because I think a lot of people deny the fact that they have an addiction or they have an issue. Do you have kind of some questions you could ask yourself that you might want to reach out to somebody? Do you have a kind of a checklist or something people could go through to ask themselves when they might need either with an addiction or maybe with a mental health thing? Because this self-diagnosis, we put it off or we're in denial. What do you recommend in that case?
Well, and you mentioned self-diagnosis, and I will say, I think because it has become more popular to talk about mental health these days, there are a lot of self-diagnoses happening in the general population. And, I think it's okay to recognize that, it's good to recognize that we might be experiencing symptoms of a mental health diagnosis. But it's important that if we suspect that we do seek treatment from a mental health professional, because knowledge is power. And, there are a lot of diagnoses that mimic each other. ADHD and anxiety have very similar symptoms, but until I sit down with someone that has the tools to actually complete a screening for a diagnosis, I might think I have one when actually I have the other. Especially in adults, ADHD and anxiety are very similar. So I think it's important, if if we suspect, that we go ahead and talk to our doctors, or reach out to New Horizons to seek that treatment. And then aside from that, if I am experiencing something that is disrupting my day-to-day routine or my average ability to function, that would be a sign that help is needed.
Can you give me an example?
So if I'm going through something that is causing me to have a hard time going to work or to school, if it's disrupting relationships, making it hard for me to maintain relationships, whether it's family, friends, or boss employee relationships, anything like that, those would be just anything that prevents me from meeting my basic level of living would be important to seek treatment for.
Yeah, just those day-to-day functions, it could be not wanting to get up out of bed. Excuse me, not wanting to get up out of bed, changing your appetite, your sleeping habits. You're no longer interested in doing things that you love doing, so you losing motivation, on a daily basis. So just reaching out and seeking help is important. And to go back, like we said, touching on our children's program, we want to get people in from now, not waiting until they're adults to seek those treatments, because the trauma gets more. So if we can break that stigma that surrounds mental health and get people, if your kids, are facing these challenges, bring them in, let them get that professional help. So we're not waiting until they're adults to try and mend it. They're already getting these coping skills to deal with it now throughout.
I think the transition has to take place where asking for help is a courageous step instead of being seen as a weakness. It should be seen as, look, I don't have perfect 360-degree vision. I can't see in the back of my head. So maybe I need to reach out. And what do you think about this? And we don't, none of us has that. So having another set of eyes and ears, I think it's almost should be someone should have an annual checkup. Like you have an annual checkup on your eyesight. You have an annual checkup for your doctor. You should have an annual mental health checkup just to say, how are you doing with life? How's things going? And what do you feel about this? What do you feel about that? I think that would be, to me, would be
Yes.
a recommended thing to do.
That's fantastic, because mental health is as important as your physical health.
It can certainly downward spiral into affecting one, definitely affecting the other, and how you interact on your job, how you interact with your family. What's going to happen when you get behind the wheel of a car?
Yeah.
If you're having a really rough day or an episode or whatever, it affects the world around us. I was just driving last night on the way home, and I was just thinking, I'm in the slow lane coming from Miami, and the cars in the other lane are going, 90 miles an hour. Somebody could be having a bad day and just swerve into the other lane just because they got into a fight in the car. And I just happened to be that person. I would have hoped they got, saw some counseling. It's everybody's issue. This is not just the person that's having the bad day or bad situation. That affects everybody.
Yeah, we're not an island.
No. Oh, wow.
And we're one situation away from a crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to bring this up, but I was at a football game, the Miami Dolphins game, and I saw somebody get shot right in front of me just because they were upset because somebody backed into them, and they chased after the car, and the guy got out of the car, and he did not cope with that situation. Now somebody's, but how many of us can share a similar situation like that, all because they weren't coping?
Right.
They didn't let it out. They didn't let that escape valve wasn't there. They didn't know how to do it.
Didn't know how to regulate those feelings that they're feeling. Yeah.
Do you have any quick tips for people to help regulate? Obviously, seek help, number one. Any things you could share with our audience?
So it's not always comfortable, because a lot of times our minds are going 100 miles a minute, and we have thoughts, just going through our minds constantly. But mindfulness is so important, taking time to slow our brains down and, focusing on what's directly around us to help relieve some stress. Grounding, where, you literally take off your shoes and walk outside in your backyard or grass that's in your neighborhood or wherever, and feeling what's below your feet. Um, just a lot of things like that where it really pulls you into the moment. With kids, a lot of times I'll ask them to look around the room and find as many pink objects as you can, and it brings them back to the present. That's really important when we're trying to regulate our emotions.
So I really like all the suggestions you made, and I want to go a little bit deeper. Mindfulness. We've heard that term, people talk about it. When you take that umbrella, what do you put under that mindful umbrella? What fits under there? Meditation? What fits under that umbrella of mindfulness?
So meditation, really in any form, it could be, listening to music and, calming your mind that way. It could be practicing yoga and focusing on your breathing. It could just be sitting and meditating, anything like that where your mind is slowed and again, you're brought back to the present rather than the past or the future.
And then you talked about something that, getting out in nature, taking your shoes off, feeling the blades of grass between your toes. Wait a second, I'm not on my cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out in nature, looking at the birds and hearing their sounds and watching the moon come over the water, and
We have beaches where we can
beaches
take
here,
our shoes off and, hang out in the sand for a while.
I'm 100% believer in that, and I can't. This happened to me before. You're having a stressed out day, and I talked to my wife. I said, "Honey, let's take a walk on the beach." And there's never been a time where I was more stressful after the walk on the beach than before.
Yep.
It's you know what? Guess what? It's free.
Yep.
If you have to get there though, get to the beach. But we have so many good parks around here where
Yes.
people can do that. And then you mentioned awareness. I liked what you said about you asked the kids to find the, stop. How many things are pink in this room? And we walk through life, we're not even really paying attention.
Yes.
What we see. How do you cultivate that skill? How do you cultivate that skill?
You have to be intentional about it. Sometimes I set alarms on my phone to make myself do it and stop whatever I was doing to make myself do it. It's not easy and sometimes we feel like, especially for adults that are busy, we feel like we don't have time. But 5 minutes in our day to center ourselves and to release whatever big emotion, I work with the kids, whatever big emotions
Right.
we're experiencing really helps us to regulate and deal with whatever we're going through.
You mentioned time, and I really would challenge anybody when they say they don't have enough time. When you're in a rush and you forgot that important presentation and you have to go 10 minutes back to go get it because you were rushing, you had time to go back because you made a mistake, or you're on I-95, or no, you're on the turnpike and you missed the Fort Pierce exit.
Oh no.
But so you have now, because you weren't paying attention, you were looking at your phone, and I don't have time. But this calm person who's into mindfulness doesn't miss the exit. And so who's got more time?
Well, and you have to think about, why that happens.
Right.
We go into autopilot
Right.
when we're in our cars because we're thinking about everything except for what we're
Exactly.
doing.
And so I would challenge anybody who says they don't have time. I promise you, if you could meditate or find time for mindfulness, it's going to expand your time. If you could take your family out for a walk once a day, get out in nature and slow down, you're going to see more things. You're going to be able to show up at work and show up with your family and show up with your community with a broader perspective, have a more uplifting conversation, and go down roads that are more positive than you would if you're in that state of rushing, going, doing. And life is a lot better, more enjoyable, right?
Like,
Yes.
yep. In this busy world, we have to be intentional about it. Like
Mhm.
you said, it has to be intentional.
I love those recommendations. I love those recommendations. So I noticed on the website at New Horizons, you guys have different fundraising events that you have throughout the year. What do you have coming up over the next year? I think there was a race. There's like all sorts of things happening. What do you have coming up where people maybe can volunteer or get involved?
Yeah. So we're always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for donation. Um, so with our children's program, we have Easter coming up. If we can get donations for little Easter baskets and stuff like that, that's something we usually give out to our children. There is back to school, so we do back to school backpacks and all that stuff.
As well, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, our race to recovery, that's a big one that we do in September.
So tell us, a race to recovery, what is that?
So it's a 5K that we have every year in September. The date for this year has not been chosen yet, but it will be in September. It's usually the second half of the month. And I mean, the focus on that race is recovery. And we usually have a really good turnout. We can always use more volunteers. We usually have youth from the local high schools helping, among other volunteers as well. But that's definitely something that we could use all hands on deck on.
And where is the race held?
Last year, the last couple of years, it's been held at IRSC's Pruitt campus
Okay.
in St. Lucie West.
Okay.
And it's a really beautiful race. Even though it's in the middle of St. Lucie West, it feels like you're in the middle of nature running around that campus.
It is. Yeah.
So it's a 5K you can run or walk it, I'm guessing?
We do
Yes.
have a 1 mile walk
Okay.
option as well. So, and it's family friendly. I mean, the kids can do the 5K or they can do the 1 mile walk. So definitely fun for everybody.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So let's give us that website one more time.
www.nhtcinc.org.
And the phone number.
772-468-5600.
I'm going to kind of veer off a little bit. So picture yourself, you guys were in high school, and if you were talking to yourself in high school, and how would you encourage your former self to take this leap into helping care for others? If there are some students out there listening, how would you encourage them to be part of the solution and really want to go into a career where they're helping other folks like you guys are doing? What would you say to them?
Okay. So, to say back in high school. So I grew up in a culture where there's a lot of stigma surrounding mental health. For us, it was normal to see someone with mental health just being on the streets. It's something you don't really talk about. There's that name calling piece to it, or madman, or he's crazy. Just learning to have that compassion, for that next person, and being that light that you would want someone to be for you, and reaching out to them. That's it. I usually start this thing with my kid where I said to her, like, who did you help today? And so now when she comes in the car, she knows that's what I'm going to ask her. Who did you help today? And helping can be anything, as having someone sit with you for lunch. It could be helping them with the math, however they may need that help.
That was, I felt that. That was awesome. That was amazing.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
I think for me, I would say it's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. There's we don't always get to see the impact of the work that we do, or the long-term impact of the work that we do, because sometimes someone comes to us in a crisis, and so we help resolve that crisis, but we may not see what happens later. But to be able to walk through some of the hardest situations that people go through with them is, I mean, it's worth it. I think it's really important. We talked about how busy we all are. there's so many people that forget to just take a minute to be kind to others.
Wow.
And, you know, just to be able to be that person that is kind for an hour for someone is, you know, sometimes more than they get anywhere else, you know, so.
I have this philosophy. It's called the "How are you" phone call that one of my people I learned from taught me. Is just look through your phone. Who haven't you spoken to in a while? Just call them for no reason other than how you doing. Check in. How are you?
I love that.
You know, how you doing today? Be kind. Wow. Who did you help today? It's just beautiful. I want to cry when I hear that. Like, as a parent, I think about like, oh, what'd you learn in school today? How was school? I wish I would have asked that question. Who did you help today? In fact, I'm going to call my kids. They're older now. In fact, my daughter is learning. She's getting a degree in forensic psychology.
Oh, great.
So I'm going to call her today and say, you know, who did you help today? She'll probably turn it back on me. But she works at a call center and everything. But this has been an extraordinary interview. What if people, is there an open house or some time of year where people can see the facility at New Horizons? Do they have a time when you guys have visitors, or what if somebody wants to kind of learn more about it, what can they do?
So they can always call that number and schedule a visit. We always welcome people to like walk through, see what our facility is like. So yeah, it's open. It's always open.
So that's a call out to the big donor who's listening out there. Give New Horizons a call. Take a walk through, and I promise you'll be happy you did. This is Miles McGrath, Careology. Thank you so much for listening.
Careology, the science of caring, presented by CareBag. Every Monday morning in the 10 o'clock hour on WPSL, Port St. Louis, at the top of the Treasure Coast.